Imagine this, a company that didn't even know how to make cars in the beginning. Today, that same company has overtaken Tesla.
There's competitors now ramping up, and as you're familiar with BYD, which is also on the West Coast, I think they're ramping up production of their electric vehicles. Warren Buffett owns 10% stake in that. Why do you laugh? BYD is trying to compete. Why do you laugh?
Have you seen their car?
And become the world's #1 EV company. This is not a movie story. This is the real story of BYD China factory. BYD stands for Build Your Dream. The company was founded in 1995, and interestingly, BYD was not an electric car company at all in the beginning. Initially, BYD only manufactured mobile phone batteries for companies like Nokia and Motorola. At that time, the company had just 20 employees, and today, more than 700,000 people work for BYD. But this is where the real story of BYD begins. In the 1990s, when the entire world saw China only as a cheap manufacturing country, BYD bet on technology. The mobile phone market was growing rapidly, and the demand for reliable, low-cost batteries was exploding. BYD recognized this opportunity and mastered mass production despite limited resources. Without expensive robots, BYD used manual production lines to significantly reduce battery costs. This experience later became a game changer for BYD because it taught the company how to scale production, control costs, and build a strong foundation for future technology. At that time, no one imagined that a company making mobile phone batteries would one day challenge the global electric car industry.
The early years were not easy. Fear of battery explosions, questions about quality, competition from international brands. Problems were everywhere. At that time, a big question was raised. Can China really make advanced technology? Critics said Chinese companies would never survive at a global level. During that period, BYD was fighting not only technology challenges, but also a trust crisis. Japanese and South Korean battery companies were already well established, and people trusted their names blindly. BYD, on the other hand, was ignored as a cheap Chinese product. Many big clients initially refused to use BYD batteries due to concerns over safety and long-term reliability.
In 2003, BYD acquired a loss-making Chinese car company. People said, how can a battery company make cars? But this turned out to be BYD's masterstroke. At that time, petrol cars dominated the market, but pollution, oil prices, and future uncertainty were becoming increasingly visible. BYD did what other companies were afraid to even think about. It bet on an electric future.
When you have a country like China, where much of the auto industry is increasingly automated, the sky is the limit in terms of what they can produce. And if that means a flood of EVs or other vehicles on global markets, that is going to have the effect of just pulling down prices. And that's going to hurt Western automakers that are trying to compete with these.
This decision was so risky that many experts called it BYD's biggest gamble. The car industry is not just about making a product. It involves safety standards, design, branding, and after-sales service, areas where BYD had almost zero experience. Making cars was far more complex than making batteries, and even a small mistake could destroy brand credibility. On top of that, people were not serious about electric cars back then. Range was low, charging infrastructure was missing, and customers believed petrol cars were the future. Investors feared that BYD's money would sink into this experiment. But BYD valued data and trends more than emotions. Pollution levels in cities were reaching dangerous limits, oil prices were fluctuating frequently, and governments were slowly introducing clean energy regulations. BYD understood that even though petrol cars ruled the market at the time, their future was limited, so BYD sacrificed short-term profits for long-term positioning. The early years brought losses, imperfect cars, and constant criticism, but BYD did not step back. This was the phase where BYD quietly increased investment in electric technology, learned manufacturing deeply, and built the foundation of what would later become a massive EV empire. What looked like madness at the time eventually became BYD's greatest strength. BYD invested billions of dollars in EV R&D during its early loss-making years. BYD's early electric cars were slow, had limited range, and lacked charging infrastructure. Sales were poor, losses kept increasing. Many experts said EV technology is not practical yet, but BYD did not give up. It understood one critical thing. The heart of an EV is the battery. At that time, electric cars felt more like concepts than reality. Customers feared cars would stop mid-journey. Charging stations were almost non-existent, and EVs were considered unreliable compared to petrol cars. BYD's early electric cars faced the same criticism: low speed, limited range, and frequent technical issues. Media dismissed them as future experiments, and investors believed investing in EVs was foolish. Sales numbers remained low, and losses grew every year. But BYD treated this phase not as failure, but as learning. The company realized that before design or speed, the biggest bottleneck was the battery. If the battery was not safe, powerful, and affordable, EVs would never reach the mass market. Instead of spending heavily on advertising or branding, BYD focused on battery research. This was the period when BYD was silently working on something that would eventually change the entire EV industry. While people believed EVs were impractical, BYD knew one thing clearly: the day the battery problem is solved, the future of electric cars truly begins.
This is where BYD changed the game. BYD developed its own blade battery. Safer, lower fire risk, longer life, and lower cost. Now the question arises, how did BYD move ahead of Tesla?
Chinese car manufacturer Build Your Dreams has overtaken Elon Musk's Tesla as the world's biggest retailer of electric vehicles.
The answer is simple. Tesla buys batteries. BYD makes its own. The biggest fear in the EV world has always been battery fires. Early EV accidents created a perception that electric cars were unsafe. BYD turned this problem into an opportunity. The blade battery was designed to withstand extreme tests, like the nail penetration test, without catching fire. While other batteries carried fire and explosion risks, Blade battery redefined safety standards. It also offered a longer life cycle, meaning slower degradation and lower cost compared to traditional lithium-ion batteries. This is where the real difference between BYD and Tesla became clear. Tesla builds world-class cars, but depends on suppliers for batteries. BYD, on the other hand, designs, manufactures, and integrates its own batteries. This gives BYD control over cost, supply chain, and technology. As EV prices started falling, BYD launched affordable electric cars while competitors struggled. Blade battery was not just a product, it was BYD's weapon that pushed it several steps ahead of the competition. It became clear that BYD was not just selling cars, but reshaping the power balance of the EV industry.
BYD didn't just build cars, it built the future. If you found this story interesting, like the video and subscribe for more.